So are you energetic what exactly? Just so I have the
Just
right
say
word.
energy, just energy expert.
Energy
You can say
expert, is
that.
that a
That's
thing?
fun.
You can call yourself an energy
Yeah.
expert?
You can call yourself anything you want.
Yeah, true. It's just made up. Everyone's just using
Yeah,
made up
it's just made
titles,
up.
right? Everything's made up. I love it.
Yeah, I work with people and I'm an energy expert. That's what I am. That's my expertise. I
Fuck
teach
yeah.
emotional and energetic intelligence and I love the shit out of it. And that's what I do. So
Yeah.
I'm going with it.
All right, all
And
right.
then your viewers will be like, oh, who's that chick? She's an energy expert?
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. But you
True. I
can
might
call it
keep this in as
your
well. Aasha
yeah, keep
T, welcome to the podcast. Energy expert, relationship coach. I'm so glad to have you on today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Dylan. I'm so honored to be here. I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
And one thing I'm really curious about, as you are also an author, is the book you wrote called The Empath is the Narcissist. I'm really curious about how you came up with this idea. I'm sure you went on a whole journey of healing and growth to enter that space. Yeah, tell me a little bit about this book.
Thank you so much for asking. Yeah, so the book in itself can be very triggering. It's been awesome actually out here in Los Angeles. I just moved to LA and I met a man the other night and he was like, my wife and her book club are reading your book right now, which was really cool to experience because the book is so triggering as far as the title, The Empath is the Narcissist. So essentially, there is a dynamic and energy called push pull. And what we do the entire way to sort of like balance is we push and we pull, and that shows up as anxious and avoidant. And the masculine and the feminine, if we're even if you're not heterosexual, even if you're gay or you have other different types of ways that you relate, there's still always a primarily masculine pole and a primarily feminine pole in the dynamic. Together, we have polarity. So if you're familiar with the law of magnetism says that we magnetically attract based off of the energy that we hold. Well, law of magnetism is actually a secondary law to the law of vibration. So when we are vibrating, it's very easy to say, I've attracted this narcissist and push them away if they hurt us, when we actually are vibrating on a frequency that has called that into our energetic space in the first place. So when we enter a relationship dynamic, we're always attracting the opposite of who we are, unless it's a disorganized situation, which it really is. People kind of go from avoidant back to anxious, back to avoidant. And in my experience, I started off very avoidant. I was a really high achieving woman and really like save the ocean with Greta instead of like caring about my husband at home. And I was highly anxious. And it was really, I shut down my light. And then I was able to experience an extraordinary wake up call where I felt a man who was attached to my soul for 18 years let go. And when he let go, I woke up and I lost all this weight and I started to see energy. And as I woke up, my heart opened and I realized that my first husband couldn't be in my energy and he became avoidant and he ran away. So it was really powerful, Dylan. I got to see in live time the role that both the narcissist and the codependent are playing. Everybody's playing a role. And the codependent may feel really hurt, but they are still playing a role in that dynamic. If that codependent has had healed their mother wound or father wound, they wouldn't attract that in the first place. So it's a really powerful piece of work. And my underpin is emotional intelligence. And then I rewrote attachment theory with the understanding of masculine and feminine energies.
That's awesome.
So
And just
that's what the book is about. Yeah, it's a healing book.
And just touching on that idea of when he I guess surrendered or let go of that attachment, then that freed you. I'm curious about that dynamic and what's involved there.
Such a great question. And it was so powerful. I was starting the work in EQ, emotional intelligence, and I was going inward and I was feeling really like starting to like loosen up. Things were starting to loosen up. And, I will say one thing, Dylan, before I get into the story, to anybody listening, this is why it's so important. If you have a heartbreak with someone from your past, you really want to let that go because it affects them as well. It affects you and it affects them. They can feel it. And when he let go, right before he let go, I had reached out to him, even though I was in a relationship and married. And I was like, I really own all of this. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Because I have a really high level of integrity, but I wasn't being integral. People say, oh, I've got such high integrity. And then they do these things. And I was like, this isn't matching. And I'm doing all this inward work. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Anyway, I reached out to him and he actually said, I can't believe you're reaching out to me. I just let you go. And I said, I felt that. I felt you let go of me. And as he said it, it was like, and like he sent me this song, and I'm really deeply into music. And he just sent me the song, and I started bawling. And then it actually felt like I just went shooting up to like 500 dimensions. I saw myself as a mermaid. And I was like, oh my God, like every single light went on in the house. I like realized like we were under like, the COVID spell and all this other bullshit. And I was like, what is this? And I ascended very, 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 very fast. And I was like, this is the man I'm supposed to be with. And I like quickly tried to get off the timeline with my husband and then jump into this one. And then that man ghosted me. And when he ghosted me, I had no one to grab onto. So I had to look at myself. And that's when the journey really started. It was crazy. It's awesome. The whole story is in the book. People actually can really relate because like it's like twin flame dynamic or some sort of like twin flame or yeah, soulmate kind of contract.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool.
I'm really interested to read this book now. Is it on Audible? Do you
Yeah,
have an
it's
audiobook as well?
not yet. We're gonna actually have to come up with a second edition as well, Dylan, because I will be honest with you guys, like I wrote this book in 2 weeks. And it's so funny because people are like, I've got a book idea and all this overthinking. And I'm really like balls to the wall. I'm like, just get it fucking done. And then so therefore it probably like an 8 or maybe even like a 6 out of 10 as far as writing goes. So we're going to be redoing it with a second edition, but it's filled with like meditations and exercises. So I tell the story and then I say, here are ways that you can heal your heart. In fact, I had a client on the phone today and she was like, oh my gosh, I said, hey, listen, let's talk about the amygdala hijack in your brain and your trigger response. And she goes, I'm reading your book. I'm on that page right now. And I was saying to myself, this is awesome. I wish I knew more. And then of course I was teaching it to her literally this afternoon. So it's really quite insightful. And it talks about how emotional intelligence is masculine and feminine energy. It is the basis of our DNA.
Would you say
Yeah.
that safety and feeling safe in the body would be one of the core integral parts to your work?
So, absolutely. So, what we find is many people are relying on even men to keep us safe. And granted, that is a part of the role of the masculine. For the feminine, as the divine feminine begins really waking up and really stepping into her depth and her essence, he's going to want to protect that, and she has to cultivate that inside of herself. So, how does this look tangibly? Let's say a woman leaves your life, or a man leaves my life, and he leaves. It's going to rip everything out of you more often than not. And I teach on this, and I have some amazing free resources I can share with your audience in the Great Collapse. and basically everything collapses. So the goal in this game of life that we're all playing is to get to an energetic vibration where homies can just come in and out of the situation, Dylan's situation, and you don't move. It's like samurai status of emotional regulation. So that is really sort of where it's at. Doesn't mean that your feelings won't get hurt or there won't be layers to this. And you want to be two sovereign beings that are choosing commitment, that are choosing devotion. And from that place, the energy between you is so clean that it's just got like this clean vibration of truth and love.
Definitely. Something that I've
Yeah.
learned, something I've observed as well is how um, it's so common to be in a state of agitation or stress in the body. The nervous system isn't regulated. There's some dysregulation
Yeah.
happening. And something I've learned is you can't, or a lot of the time, you can't really think yourself through it because it's such a primal thing, right? Trauma is still in the body. There's this idea, the body keeps the score. So the body
Mhm.
holds all these memories of the past, holds all these traumas, and the process of regulating that nervous system is to, I guess, really shake it out, really tap into that emotional body, that physical body, that energetic body. And as you said, that's such a key part in that relationship is having your own clean energy, right?
I love that. And you really described trauma loops there, as far as even the body keeping the score and the understanding that we are always protecting ourselves. As I mentioned, I'm going through a lot of upgrades in the moment where I'm clearing a lot of trauma. Why does this happen? When you step into this service work, you have to embody what it is that you're teaching. So many couples come together, and this is the thing, there's a hyper independence, and I'm really against that agenda. We need each other to initiate and to heal. You have to heal off of other human beings. It's how we actually ultimately connect. You're never going to have it perfect. And for some reason, my sole purpose is to almost be like really, really like regulated for my king, because my king is a very powerful energy healer and he's very, very deeply devoted. And therefore, it's so deep, Dylan, like the depths that you can go. It's just when you kind of crack the code of like, oh my God, this never stops, it becomes like the best game ever. You just want to get so good at really getting really good at controlling your emotions, or like knowing and understanding your emotions, and like not worrying too much if you're in a place of anger, because you know that's going to pass. And so there's a lot of like, I just love this work, because the other thing is I've only been on this journey since January of 2021. It's now 2024. And I've cleared like 20 or 30 million lifetimes of trauma in that short period, because of the energetics and because of the emotional awareness and the resilience.
I
Yeah.
thought we'd touch now on the modern dating scene. Let's
Okay.
I think this is a very interesting topic. It's also a topic that's very heavy in the collective right now. Um,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of issues here.
Yeah.
I thought I'd start by reading some stats. So, nearly
Oh,
half
I'd
of
love it.
all adults under 30 are single, 34% of women, and a whooping 63% of men. So, a lot more men are single than women. Um,
Wow.
Men in their 20s are more likely than women in their 20s to be romantically uninvolved, sexually uh, dormant, friendless, or lonely. Only half of single men are actively seeking relationships or even casual dates. It's only half, but half have just left the scene right now amongst young people.
Insane. So only
50%, sorry?
only half are seeking relationships,
Yeah,
did you say? Oh,
actively seeking
wow.
relationships or even casual dates. So the keyword's actively. So in a sense,
Yeah.
many men have checked out. Um,
Mm,
50% of women of men, 50% of men have not approached a woman in the last year. 80 whilst 86% of women want men to make the first move. And we
yeah.
can see
Yeah.
this sort of
Wow.
ripple effect after Me Too, right? Where
Yeah.
men were told, hey, take a step back. And there was some potentially good reasons for the Me Too movement. People were abusing their power. But now a lot of men are just afraid to make the first move, but women want men to make the first move. So we have this catch 22 situation. My final stat is that 45% of women between the ages of 25 and 44 will be single and childless by the time 2030 arrives. So that's only 6 years away. That's the prediction that it's going to be 45% of women will be single and childless. Given all these
Wow.
things that are happening, um, oh, let's start with a simpler question. What are your thoughts on all of this that's happening right now?
So there's two ways that you can look at this. You can look at this as a great separation and a great divide, or you can look at it as prep for divine unions. And that's the perspective I try to hold 90% of the time, 80, 90% of the time. Because if we actually feed into the scarcity and the division, we will then perpetuate that. Now, I'm also a practitioner and I'm out on the field, and you understand this as well as a single man, right? Like it's not easy out there in the moment. So, I'm going to share with you a little bit of an insight. I don't know if I've shared this with you before privately, but I've done a lot of research on dating apps. Part of my mission is to create a dating app with my husband to bring divine unions together. We do it through magnetism. The woman has to be willing to step in and start the process. If a woman doesn't start, then the masculine can't even hear her energy calling out. It's a siren call, a mermaid call. And so she has to start that in order for the masculine to begin waking up. That's how it goes. And so if she's not willing to devote to these relationships, we have a major problem. So this is why my course is for women in the moment, because I have a very structured way that I bring women into their relationships. It's a 3-step process. It measures your energy, and we figure out like exactly what Dylan's woman wants. So, right, she gets exactly what she wants and exactly what she wants to do in her purpose work and how she wants to feel and what she wants to show up as. And then all of a sudden she's waking you up because you've ordered her from the energetic buffet. And now you guys start to find each other. And that's all a little bit complex. So, to answer your question, I try my best to stay in the energy of, oh, we're just preparing for divine union. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. We're just preparing for divine union. And as soon as, let's say, 3, 4, 5 of the leading divine unions really kick it off, everybody's going to want that because the divine unions are embodied. And so that's like a really big thing for me. And that's why I'm so focused on attracting my own husband. I'm so focused on that because I take it very seriously. It's not just about me, it's about the collective consciousness. It's about it's about the kids. I went through a very bad divorce, and I don't want that to go in vain. My mission is to stop divorce and get it right the first time. And the women that I work with, Dylan, in all honesty, they're so deeply in the victim and the disconnect. I actually have had a really hard time trying to talk to them because I'm so out of that place, but they are still so hurt from the masculine. And there's very little understanding of inner king and the understanding of masculine energy inside and how that feels for a woman. So I'm just staying on mission to get my own mission out there and hope that the people follow the light, And so that's the way I look at it, but I do believe that momentum is always building, and if you sit and you watch reels and you watch you know, 5 minutes of the shit that's out there, you're like, there's so much misinformation. There's so much blame. There's so many hurt people in the comments. And it can be, I try my best not to even get in there because I can get down this rabbit hole and I'm like, oh, I did want to share one thing. So I do a lot of research on dating apps and the owners and the people who have founded these massive billion-dollar vehicles of dating apps, and why aren't they working? Or maybe they're working a little bit, but are they really working? Because people are still getting divorced and people are still, really disconnected in their marriages. Even if and everybody's like dealing with weight issues and, we're going in a decline. And the woman who founded Bumble, she founded it off of pain against the masculine. She was deeply hurt because she grew up in like a Mormon society and was quite stifled. And so she built the entire company on that ethos that men are bad. And that's why women have to make the first move. And she's one of the biggest supporters of the Me Too movement. I don't support the Me Too movement. There's a lot of reasons why. I won't get into all of them tonight, but it's just weaponry against men and women. And she is one of the biggest supporters. Now, she's the leader of a huge brand that has, I don't even know how many people are plugged into Bumble, but they're all plugged in. So when the leader has that pain, everybody who's plugged into that leader is going to experience the pain that she has as well, consciously or unconsciously. And so that's what we're fighting against. If you're into divine union, if you're into this light work, if you're into healing and coming into a deep, potent love that will literally change the entire planet. So that's my view from it and it.
There's so many amazing ideas you just touched on that I want to dive into. I thought we'll start
Yeah.
with the idea of what is a divine union. Many people watching this may have no idea what you're talking about and may sound crazy, mystical, or woo-woo. So,
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Super simple. And I actually love marketing and talking to people. Like, really, let's just get it down to what it is. It's two people that are a power couple and they have a really awesome mission. They've got some sort of thing that they're doing for humanity. They want to make impact. They want to look good. They want to be the couple that comes in the room and people are like, I want what they have. They have love, they have purpose. They're very like high value looking. Like people think high value comes from money. It doesn't. It comes from the level of depth in the relationship, the love that the two of you hold together. And that is what a divine union is. It's the ultimate power couple. And, it's felt and it will really disgust people and it will really turn people on and they'll want that. A good example, probably one of my favorite examples, is Beyonce and Jay-Z. Jay-Z came from nothing and he worked his way up to everything that he has created. And Beyonce was a woman of God and had a very, very protective, good father. So when those two came together, that's when they started to create multiple billions of dollars. Now, people look at that and they're like, oh, they're evil. I don't buy it because they actually have gone through the hell that it takes to create on that level. And a divine union, which is like a power couple, it is just as difficult to get into a divine union as it is to build $1 million company. That's why the leaders need to go first, because everything sort of, starts on the runway and ends up at TJ Maxx. But like, so you kind of have like these couples that are saying, hey, like a man might be listening to me right now on this podcast and say, I want that. I want a woman that is so devoted to me and my greatness. I come home and she wants to fill me up with love so that I can provide on a huge level and a massive impact. And maybe it's a small impact, but the love is there. And even if he messes up, she still supports him because she trusts his sight and she trusts his vision. And he loves her and he wants her to flourish and he respects her intuition and her heavenly sight. And they've decided that they want that together. And that is what a divine union is. Now, there's many layers to this, but essentially, if you can visualize the DNA emoji or like just DNA, it's one of the DNA strands is masculine and the other DNA strand is feminine. And everybody has that. And we're always coming into masculine and feminine contracts with each other. When you have a divine union, when you have a power couple, the DNA is actually glowing. It's like they've cleaned it out. They've washed out all the trauma. They've washed out all the dirt in the DNA. And the DNA actually becomes crystallized and like really beautiful. And so that means when they get together, it's like a power punch. Another good example is Grant Cardone and Ellen Cardone. I don't know if you know the Cardones. They're famous real estate and sales gurus. And then also Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi. They're a good example as well. And then also, I'm not very good with celebrity names. There's this other really adorable couple, and they've achieved this. They've achieved these things.
In
Maybe they
regards
have some
to
trauma, not
um
many people.
sorry, Alex and Layla, because before it sounded like one of the key components was establishing a polarity between the masculine and feminine. But when I look at Alex
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Layla, they seem both in their masculine. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I definitely actually will. So there's always a little bit of shadow with the people that don't know about this. They don't know about this. They're opening and operating their business. She's definitely in her feminine energy more often than he is, but he has a lot of feminine energy as well, actually, believe it or not. He's the type of, she runs the teams and she's deeply connecting with the teams, and she does a ton of connecting and she does a ton of creating. Those are very feminine attributes. Alex will sit in his office. If you're not familiar with Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi and you're listening, definitely watch them. He'll sit in his office for like 9 hours with headphones on in the dark by himself. And he even says, he goes, she's the brains behind the business and I take the credit, and like it works for us. So when the way I look at them is she works for her husband, and she has openly said that on interviews. She's like, well, Alex really is like there's a beautiful dynamic there. It's very much similar to my template, the way that I like work. I like working for my husband. I like the idea of my husband. I'm quite a busy person. I like doing a lot of things. And so I can really resonate with Layla. Maybe Layla could use a little bit of work on the pussy and the heart and open up a little bit more in her feminine energy. And maybe at some point I'll be her guide.
Exciting.
Because it actually affects money flow, believe it or not. And they recently talked about them not making as much money recently, and they don't know why. And it does affect money flow. The feminine affects the flow of the finances that come through a business.
So we live in a world where often masculine energy is seen as needed to be utilized to succeed in the business world, whether that be in the corporate world or being an entrepreneur. How can one embody, or how do you embody the feminine in your business and your sales? And how is that different from how other people are um sort of
Yeah.
viewing
So
this?
yeah, that's a great question. So interestingly, I was very masculinized. I mean, I was like straight up trying to be a man. And I could not like figure out how to get out of that space. And I had kept meeting all these really feminine women in Bali when I lived in Bali. And I was like, how do they have that? And like, I had no idea how to access it, Dylan. And so many women are in this space. They want it, they want to feel this way, and they don't even know where to begin. And I also knew that I love my job. I love being a CEO. How the fudge cakes can I hold both and do both? And I told myself stories. And in my first marriage, I couldn't hold love. And then I attracted a man and I felt like I needed to change my love for business, because if I wasn't more feminine, he'd never love me. And I confirmed that story that I was telling myself. I became very codependent and was like, oh, I need to be less. And that is not true at all. When it comes to feminine energy for a woman, in order to get there, the first place she has to start is vibration of frequency. She has to start with her self-worth. You can't even take, so what I say to women is, I'm like, if you want masculine direction and you want to get penetrated and led by a man, you have to start with taking my direction. If you're my client, a lot of women can't even do that. And so in order for me to, what I do with CEOs, I'll give you an example. I had this CEO client. She's on about $5 million a year. In fact, she's from Australia. And she was so masculinized and so jaded when we first started working together. She is in like a thriving relationship. She has lost 38 pounds. She quit drinking. She's taking the most beautiful photos of herself, like getting professional photos taking, and she's doing emotional intelligence work as a job. She's teaching my teachings and making them her own. And that's really the purpose of the feminine. The purpose of the feminine is to be the great connector. And so women can start with very simple things: gratitude for what you have and who's guiding you. Invest in your energy. Invest in your energy. Women who don't invest in their energy, I have a hard time even taking them seriously, because I'm like, oh, well, they're not that serious, because 80% of the feminine is the energy. So invest and enjoy it, and then teach how serve. You either serve your husband and serve his site. In my practice, that's how I operate, or you're serving God. You're doing some sort of this work. And that's what I believe makes a woman a bit feminine. I mean, it's so layered, Dylan. Like, women want this feminine embodiment, but they haven't even started working on their father wound or their rejection or their abandonment. So they'll go to feminine embodiment and then they'll have to go back and do all of it over again. So it's in my process, you have to start with the frequency, you have to start with your energy, and then we move into feminine embodiment. I take that very seriously.
Why is the king archetype important in your work? And are there any
Um,
other archetypes that you think about or use?
I love archetypes. So I study the archetypes quite a bit. There's a woman called Caroline Myss. Do you know who that is? Myss, Caroline Myss
No,
or
I'm
Mice.
not. No.
She wrote a great book. It's called Archetypes. And she's got cards, archetype cards. And I embody quite a lot of archetypes. I'm so mermaid, mother. I go to the gym I'm like a gym buff. And I've got a lot of masculine energy in me. I got a big inner king, right? I got a lot of personal power. So when it comes to the king energy, women want a king, and they believe that attracting a king, they might believe that attracting a king means money, and it means massive amounts of success and a massive amount of this and a massive amount of that. And maybe that plays a factor in it, because you want a woman that's able to stand up on her own. But the real truth about the inner king is how deep she's willing to go into her own body. So the deeper a woman goes into her own body, basically cleaning out her energy field and just washing it up and taking out all the trauma and all the other stuff, the less afraid she'll feel, the less anxious she'll feel, the more she'll trust life. So when a woman has a lot of anxiety or is in her mind a lot, she's not really connected to the king that's inside of her. So she might look for men out there to save her. She might be married to her job, or she might have bad habits like eating a lot of food or whatever. And that's because her inner king relationship is a little bit compromised. So in my work, I take the archetype of the king and I put it into women's energy bodies by teaching it through personal power and being able to be authentic. And like, just to give you an example, if you have a rockin' inner king as a woman, you could say something on your Facebook page like, I love my own titties, right? I don't know. I'm just thinking of something. You say like, I love my own titties. And like everybody sees it. Everybody sees it. And you don't have an emotional reaction. And if somebody is like really pushing you or trying to scare you or trying to shake you up, you still don't have an emotional reaction. That means that you have rocked a really solid inner kingdom, and you're building on a really solid foundation. You may then grow, and now you're off of Facebook and you've got 10,000 followers on your YouTube channel. And now you say you love your own titties, and you got more hecklers. And then you go bigger. Now you got 500,000 people watching you. Now you got billions of followers, and all these hecklers are coming. And you want to keep building and building your own resilience to what other people feel about you. And that's a divine feminine. She trusts in the king inside to be anything that she desires to be. And that's what makes her magnetic.
So
And
divine.
then,
Okay, sorry.
yeah, sorry, just the last little thing. I know
Yeah.
I'm chatting a lot. I'm excited. I love this subject. Thank you for offering it for me. And the next thing is men become inspired in that energy because she has a bigger inner king than them. So I went on a nice date last night, and the man was so potent. He had such a strong masculine energy. And then even this morning, he has sent me like a couple of texts like, you need to do this. You need to do this. And women can feel like that's off-putting, but when it's coming toward a feminine body, it's very, very alluring. It's very sexual. It's like really highly stimulating and alchemizing because prime directive feels good to the feminine system. So it's like a kindness, but it's like sharp, and that's powerful. And you can see men get created in that. It's really, really awesome. It's awesome. Yeah.
So it sounds like this is about embodying personal power in yourself, personal belief in
Yeah.
conviction. Now, an angle a lot of people have taken with this is to become the boss bitch, the boss girl.
Yeah.
Now, that has resulted in a lot of masculine sort of women. How is
Mm-hmm.
what you're suggesting different to that? What is the different element or the key that makes this both being in your feminine whilst also having that masculine strength
Yeah.
and courageousness and power?
Oh, I love that. I love that question. Thank you for asking it. So again, I feel for my own personal journey and why I relate to these women so much is that there's periods where you feel like you can't do all of it. There have been nights, honestly, Dylan, where I'm like crying for a husband, and I'm a single mother. I don't have much support, and I can really actually relate to the masculine because I'm a provider. And so it's been really difficult some nights, and you're like, am I ever going to attract a man? Like, am I ever going to attract a man? And I think a lot of those women have forgotten that. So this is a very real truth. Women are always in surrender to the masculine. They don't, even if they think they're the boss, they really aren't. They're they're always in some way being sort of led by the masculine. What's happened is a lot of women have turned to their jobs, and the jobs, so let's do a little visual. When a woman is being covered by a man, he puts his sight over her crown chakra and like sees for her. So what happens with these women is they get into these jobs and they get their crown covered by the job, and then the husband at home suffers. So she ends up married to her job. This is by design. Corporate America did this on purpose, because if you want to take in corporate Australia as well, corporate Western culture, because if you want to take down a society, you target the family. You fuck the family up. If you want to take a society down and control people, you go right for the women, because the women are the ones that are the most manipulated. They can be manipulated. And it's so brainwashed that these women can't even see what it is that's going on. And trust me, it hurts. It doesn't feel good going through this pain, because it hurts, because you have to look at everything. I mean, there were nights where I thought I was dying. And my clients are some of the bravest women. I get so emotional because they're doing this deep work and then they get to go in and lead teams and then they get to teach it to their teams. And now all of a sudden we've got feminine women everywhere. But right now we don't have that. So the only thing I'm focused on is working with these women that want this level of love because it's not an overnight thing. So the masculinization of the feminine for me is an opportunity to change that through my own embodiment and through the women that I work with. But it is a plaguing issue and it's going to divide the family very, very, very fast. It's and so many women just can't, they still can't see it. So in the moment I'm working with a man to help me talk to them a little bit better, like market to them through the victim. Like you have everything. What about deep love? Can they even, they want it. Like I'll give a quick little example. I was getting my nails done and I said to these women that I was like, oh, I cannot wait to take care of my husband. And I can't wait for my husband to come. Like I'm doing everything I can to attract him. And these women were like, oh, you don't want no man. You don't want no man. And I turned and I sharply said, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I want that deep love. I want to love a man into his greatness. And like three of the women go, I want that. I want that too. Like they forgot, like they completely forgot. And I'm like, they're like, I want that. That's what I want. And I'm like, fantastic. I think they all follow me on Instagram now. But that's an idea. Like they're so brainwashed they can't remember. But as soon as you talk about it, they're like, I do want that. I want to rest in the arms of a man. And it's about bringing them back to that place.
You mentioned
Yeah.
before that working in a corporation often means being tied into the energy of the leader or the energy of the corporation or the collective consciousness of
Yeah.
the corporation that you've opted into. Working in a
Mm-hmm.
corporation
Mm-hmm.
like that, how does one detach or detangle themselves from that web of energetics that is potentially negatively impacting them?
Oh, yeah. Great question. So we're always meeting people based off of where we are. If you can remember from the empath as the narcissist, it's the law of vibration. So I say I have a little fun with this. So let's say Dylan, you're like, okay, I want to clear my codependency in this lifetime. And God's like, okay, Dylan, sure. You want to clear your codependency? Do you want a tyrannical female CEO boss? Do you want a psychotic girlfriend? Or do you want a spiritual guru woman who is like filled with ego? And you're like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna start with the crazy girlfriend. And then God's like, oh my God, you're gonna double dose. And you're like, yep, I'm start with a crazy girlfriend. Don't get it quite yet. And then I meet a spiritual woman with a huge ego, the guru that's like inverted. And so you choose, and then you come down to the earth and you work it out. So you got to start by knowing that everybody's playing a role in these contracts. They are deadly though. So I was playing a role as a codependent with somebody who has spiritual ego. And it almost took me out. I was like physically dead. I like almost like I lost my house. I was so hooked in into this person and into this story that I had created. And you know that what I'm talking about, where you fall in love with someone's higher self and you're like, oh my God. And then you lose yourself in that place. Same shit happens at work. So what will happen is, let's say this woman, a woman's working for a tyrannical boss man, and he's like breadcrumbing her and he's like keeping her on the hook. She's going to completely avoid her husband at home. Or let's say you're working for a really masculinized woman, you can become emasculated in that energy. So there's many ways you can detangle. You can get on your own journey and start doing the work and you'll leave because it won't resonate anymore. Or you go right to the head of the snake, which is the leader. And that's what I do. I work with the leader. As soon as the leader clears their trauma, everybody who's plugged into them clears their trauma as well. It's really powerful. Yeah.
Right.
I've seen it happen with my clients as well.
Awesome. That's great. So,
Yeah, it's awesome.
as an individual, it sounds like shifting your internal reality, changing the way you
Yeah.
see, perceive, understand, and feel about the situation, and the attachment, the craving, the clinging you have towards the situation, then clears the energetic cords that you might not be able to perceive, and that starts to shift the external environment you're in. So you might be in that job now. The situation in the
Oh,
job may shift. There may be a new opportunity that was blocked from you because you weren't open to it energetically. Yeah.
that's exactly right. And that's exactly how manifestation works. So my last coach, I lost myself in him. I like lost my own compass. And then I was afraid to get into a relationship with another coach because there's no sexual energy. I don't have, I'm abstinent. I've been abstinent for years at this point because I'm saving myself for my husband. And so I still have to do the energy clearing and the clearing of the contracts and the clearing of like the energy. And the last coach I was with, I got so enmeshed. I was like, I was so collapsed when he left. He just left. And I was like, oh my God, like he left. And like we had this big plan. And now the coach that I'm working with now, I had a hard time trusting him because I'm like, oh, he's going to do the same thing that the last guy did. So you have like layers that you have to go through. And so I had to like declare that with this particular coach that I'm done with that story. I'm like, I'm done with that story. So because I declared that, I had to go through the pain and the hell of the declaration of not having that happen again. So it's like this really powerful thing because we are that powerful. You can say, I want this woman with this, this, and this. And the universe is going to start working that for you. That's how manifestation works. But what happens is people in the manifestation process, they lose themselves and then they get caught into these webs and they can't figure out their way out. And so, really powerful piece. So, but I love the way that you described that. Yeah, it's like your energetic blocking stuff. And I've seen myself doing that before. Yeah, it's really powerful.
Yeah, I love how you described that. It was really beautiful. I want to touch
Thank
on the
you.
muse archetype. I know that
Oh,
is also something that's more relevant to men. So for
yes. Oh,
women,
I love
attuning
that.
to the king is something that's important for them, but for men, it's that muse archetype. Can you tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more about this muse archetype, what it represents, and the process of attuning to that or understanding it better?
I love that question. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. So this is also in my book, The Empath is the Narcissist. I do really cool, like super simple visuals of what men should be imagining in their minds. So if you're a man and you want to attract a beautiful, divine, feminine woman, number one, don't be too afraid when she rocks up, okay? Because if you're going to ask for it, God's going to deliver. And trust me, I can relate to that. I've had men come into my life and I've been deathly afraid to receive their penetration. They're so powerful. And I find myself like running back to like what I know or like safety and working it out. So I want to talk a little bit about this muse for the men. So if you're a man, you can simply close your eyes and visualize like a beautiful, gorgeous woman of your choice, blonde, brunette, red hair if you want, you little freak. And she's dancing and she's gorgeous. And then you want to visualize the divine mother. So this aspect of the mother that's always with you. Sadly, what happens with men if they have never had a divine mother or a mother that was so nurturing, or even if they did, she might have been a little bit absent or a little bit narcissistic, it's still going to affect men. So you want to create this divine mother and then this divine beauty, and then even like a divine queen would be awesome. So you kind of have like this mother, the queen, and then this muse that all live inside your kingdom with you inside your body. And so inside my kingdom in my body, I have a father, the divine father, I have my king, and then I have like this like lover who is really sort of like in his 20s. And then there's a version of me that's in my 20s. There's a version of me that's got long gray hair and like the mother. And then I actually work inner child work. When I do inner child work, I use little boy and a little girl in my clients. And they're always blown away. They're like, I've never done inner child work with a little boy. And I'm like, well, you have a little king in there. And he would have been, he would have been holding trauma too. And so if you're a man, when you start building this kingdom inside yourself, you can simply close your eyes and do 15, 20 minutes of visualizing this amazing kingdom that you're building inside. And that's how manifestation works. You're going to see it show up in your reality. You just got to be ready for the emotions that come with that. And that's where the resilience and the emotional intelligence comes in.
So it
And she'll show up.
sounds like by visualizing these different aspects of yourself, it would trigger different emotions that may come up. For example, if you are imagining the ideal relationship, ideal partner, you may have feelings of
Mhm.
unworthiness or shame that you wouldn't confront if you were in a state of victimhood or expectation, but not really
Mm.
considering what you desired at a deep core.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Some really good wisdom. Absolutely. And what we see, right, Dylan, is like men plugging in. They plug into celebrities, they plug in, women do as well. Celebrities, pornography, other women, and multiple women. And that's actually a bypass of the inner muse and plugging into the inner muse and waiting for that muse to come forward. And so a lot of men, you can stop watching pornography and do these inner sexual experiences with this inner muse, and she will show up. She will show up. It just That's where sometimes men can get a bit afraid, and so can women. It's because you're about to receive your biggest desire, and receiving love is very difficult. But at the same time, go for it. This is like the most beautiful time. You got to shoot your shots. You got to go, like, enjoy it. Put yourself out there. Remember, if you get dissed as a man, if you get rejected, let's put that in parentheses, you trust that the inner muse is moving the men for you, I mean the women for you. So you don't have to worry too much because you're like, oh shit, no, wait a minute. I'm I got my inner muse. Like, she's just saying this isn't the right one for you. And you need to keep letting go. And that's where the energy work comes in, to do like detachments and codependency and rejection and all that stuff. This is really deep healing work for men. But it's powerful. Like, the men I work with, sometimes it's like 8 weeks. If you're a woman, you're with me for like the rest of your life. But men detach very fast. But you've explored energy work. You've had one of my sessions as well as other energy work as well.
Yes, yeah, I have. Um, I'm more familiar with that muse archetype in terms of Rion's work, actually. Now, here's a
Oh
slightly
yeah.
different process here, which is natural grounding, which is about
Okay.
using media entertainment to attune to certain archetypes. So you'd watch predominantly music videos, and those would have an energy that you wanted to attune to. So it'd be, for example, a K-pop video. It might have a
Hmm.
particular, because
Hmm.
K-pop often has strong archetypal elements, feminine archetypes. And so his work is
Hmm.
about attuning to that. Now, that's a very
Hmm.
external
External, yeah,
kind of
interesting.
idea about using something outside of yourself, but your
Hmm.
process is more about that internal, finding that internal feminine spark, it sounds like. Could you touch
That
on
is powerful.
your
Yeah.
view on Rion's work and how that's different to yours, and where the strength of yours may lie and where maybe the strength of Rion's could lie or could be
Yeah,
beneficial
I
to
didn't
your.
realize. Yeah, I was familiar with the natural grounding. I've sent a few clients actually Rion's way. He's quite amazing. His work is so powerful. He played a huge role in my own personal journey. And I didn't realize that's how natural grounding worked. I like was familiar with it, but I didn't, the way you just described it makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, we actually have a lot of similarities. He works primarily with Gene Keys and Human Design, where I work with emotional intelligence competencies. So there's 26 areas of emotional intelligence. The ones that represent King and Muse are empathy, Muse, personal power, King. So when I work the energy fields and I work people's chakras, so the seven or nine chakras that are in people's energy fields, I put in 26 areas of emotional intelligence depending on the client. And Rion does more that with gene keys and archetypes and things like that. So really cool. Like it's awesome. He's amazing. And I know he does so much work with Muse. I've read his book, which is The Calling of the Kingmaker, which was really activating for me. And yeah, his work is really powerful. It's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you
So
so much, Asha. I really enjoyed chatting with you
thank
today.
you.
Any final
Yeah,
words,
thank you
thoughts,
so
and where
much.
can people find more about you, your
Yes.
book?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you to everybody who listened. I hope that this was really insightful for you. And I'm so connected to my audience. So please feel free to reach out. Facebook is my main forum to catch me. I'm always on there, but I'm also on Instagram as well. Asha, AASHA underscore T underscore international. And I have so many freebies. I have plenty of beautiful things for men. I have an activation called Entering the Divine Mother, and it's my voice is very soothing. It can be really, really emotionally deep for men, especially if you don't have a strong relationship with your mother. And that's the goal is to really bring back the divine mother energy for men. I think sometimes in the West we get a little bit of a weird vibe with the mother energy, but I love it. I think it's one of the most beautiful energies. Um, and and like women will be like, "Don't mother a man," but I'm like, I there's something so beautiful about like the nurture of the masculine, and I think a lot of masculine men need it. And so I'm so happy to share that. And then I have another excellent one called the Divine Father that I just did in Nevada. Really, really potent for feminine women and women that desire to work on the father wound. So I'm happy to share those two activation. They're like meditations. Um, they're quite similar to maybe power liminals, just not power liminals, but just not as well produced. It's just me and my voice and a lot of light language. The codes are good though, so I'll share those. And then of course the book, The Empath is the Narcissist. And yeah, I hope that anybody who picks it up enjoys it and receives the medicine that they need or
Thank you so
want.
much. We'll be sure to put those in the description below. Thank you,
Thank
Asha.
you so much. Yes, thank you.